All right, welcome back, all you beautiful bulletproof handymen and women. We are in the arena today with Ayan Gonzalez, and Ayan has a lifetime of experience in this industry. So I'm really grateful for him for coming on the show. And rather than introducing him myself, I'm going to let him introduce himself to you so that you can learn where his background is and where he's been and where he's going. So, Ayan, if you don't mind, just give us a synopsis of your journey through this industry.
Okay, well, my name's Ayan Gonzalez. Um, I basically started in this industry around 1980. When I was a kid, uh, we were Cuban immigrants. We left communist Cuba when I was 5 years old in 1967 with the Freedom Flights.
Wow.
And we moved to Miami, and that's where I lived a good 30, 40 years roughly. When I was a kid, my dad did whatever he could for us to survive. And when he would come home, he would do handyman work. And it led me to hate construction in general because I would be the one that would clean up, remove the nails, sweep, sand,
Yeah.
pick up the blocks, pick up the wood. I hated it, and I swore up and down that I'm never going to get into this industry. I hate this industry. So I was going to be a business guy. I studied business when I went to college, and my end game was to become a sporting goods chain owner. So I started working for a sporting goods company, and I was about 18 years old, and I had an incident that happened. It was Christmas time, and we were real busy, and the manager scolded a cashier, and I said, "Hey, why are you doing that?" He didn't like that I said that, and he basically told me, "This is my store. If you don't like it, leave." That kind of hit me the wrong way, so I left, and I swore that day I'm never going to work for anyone for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And come hell or high water, no matter what happens, I'm never going to work for anyone. That was around 1980. And the very first Home Depot had just opened up. And I was moping around and I went to the Home Depot to pick something up. I don't remember what it was. On my way out, the Home Depot used to have a billboard where people would put their business cards or they would put, advertising that they do handyman work or whatever. And I saw this one sign that said a fan installation, $35. And you would just peel a piece of the phone number off of the handwritten note. And I said to myself, well, I can do that. Back then, minimum wage was like $3, 3.50 an hour, something like that. I said $35. That's 10 hours. Well, I can do a ceiling fan in like a half hour, an hour. I know how to do that because I did it with my dad. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. So I put a sign up on the wall, and the next day I got a phone call. And so I went and I installed the ceiling fan, and I said, well, that's not so bad. I mean, that's better than working at McDonald's. So I kept doing that, and I got another phone call, and about a couple weeks later, this guy calls me and he says, I need you to install a ceiling fan for me. I said, sure. So I go and install it, and he says, well, I got another one in the other room. Can you do that? I said, sure. So I did that, and he says to me, do you know how to hang a door? I said, sure. I had no idea how to hang a door. I'd never hung a door before. I saw my
Yeah.
dad do it. I had no idea how to do it. But I said, yeah, I can do it. Okay, well, go to this place and hang the door for me. So the next day, I went back to the Home Depot, and back then the Home Depot used to have a book section, and they used to have Better Homes and Gardens books,
Mhm.
how to do carpentry, how to paint, how to tile, how to do, and I would sit there like if it was a library, I couldn't afford to buy the books, so I'd sit there like a library, and I'd just sit there for hours and read the books, and I found a book on how to do carpentry, how to hang doors. So I went and hung the door for the guy, and he says to me, "Well, listen, you did that fairly well. It took me twice as long as it would have taken me today. Do you know how to do drywall?" I said, "Well, yeah, I can do drywall. I'm a real estate commercial real estate agent, and I've got a warehouse down the road, and I need a small office built, a 12 by 12 office with an acoustical ceiling. And can you do that?" I said, "Yeah." So I went back to the Home Depot. I started reading the books and trying to figure out what to do. And some of the information wasn't there, so I would go to construction sites and I would look for where the drywall hangers are, and I would walk in there and I would just look at what they're doing. I go, well, I can do that. They're just throwing this up on the wall. They're measuring. I can figure that out.
Mhm.
So I went and I did the guy's office for this garage. It was basically a warehouse, about 1,000 square foot warehouse that needed a small office. So I went in there and I put it together. It took me about 8 or 10 days, and I made like $2,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is not bad. This is actually pretty good. So I started doing handyman work. And then in the evening, I've heard about somebody teaching the general contractors class at my old high school in the evening, night school. So I said, well, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to see what that's all about. So I met there my first mentor, and his name was Morton Schultz. So I went to the class and I started learning how to take the general contractor's exam. And then in the daytime, I was out doing handyman work. And I was about 21 or 22 years old at the time. And the people in the class, the youngest guy next to me would be 40 years old. Everybody was engineers, architects. I mean, people that have been in the industry for decades and they're college educated with degrees, and they were starting to take their general contractor's license. So here's this kid half their age trying to get the general contractor's license. I didn't care. I'm in there to do it. I would raise my hand and ask questions to the teacher, and everybody would laugh because I would ask, like, well, what's a pile cap? Because one of the
Yeah.
questions we have to figure is how much concrete is in a pile cap. I had no idea what a pile cap was. I'll raise my hand and everybody started laughing. So after this class, the teacher, Morton, came to me one day and he said, Ian, listen, don't pay any attention to these guys. You're going to make it. I said, what do you mean? He says, you're going to make it. I can tell you're going to make it because you're looking for the answer and you're not intimidated by these people. So just keep going. You're going to do fine. So I was going, doing fine. And then I was starting to get to where I was making some decent money. And then I went to a job site. Somebody needed some drywall done in these elevator shafts. That was 1985. And unfortunately, I had an accident in that elevator. It dropped 4 stories, and I fractured
Wow.
my back. L1, L2 compression fracture. I broke 5 bones in my body, and I was paralyzed. And I had just gotten married. Luckily, I didn't have any children at the time, but it took me 2 years to get to where I could walk and
Oh,
get back again. So I came back to class, and I said to Morton, I said, Morton, you know, I'd like to get some advice from you. And he says, what I said? I said, well, I want to get to the next level. I want to have employees, and I want to I want to be able to be a contractor. I want to be a contractor. He says, so what can I do for you? He said, well, what should I do? Should I open an electrical contractor business? Should I open a drywall business? What do you recommend? And he said to me, he says, well, I think you should do drywall. I say, if he told me plumbing, I would have done plumbing. I don't care. I trusted this guy. So
yeah.
I said, well, okay, well, how do you do that? And he says, well, first you got to learn how to hang drywall the right way. I said, okay, well, how do you do that? And he says, well, go to a job site where they're building houses, find the drywall contractor, and tell them that you want to hang drywall. So that's what I did. And at that time, they were paying like $2.50 a sheet to hang a 12-foot drywall. So I started hanging drywall. I hired a guy to help me. I was paying him $5 an hour. By the time I finished the job, I had made like $2 an hour. So my helper was making $5 an hour. I was making like $2 an hour. But
Yeah.
I kept pushing because Morton said, "Don't worry about it. Just keep going, keep going."
So you were
So,
operating as like an independent subcontractor for home builders? Is that what it was?
well, I was doing handyman work, whatever I could find, because I didn't know what I was doing. And when I asked him, well, "How do you open a drywall business?" he said, "Well, learn how to hang drywall first. So go to a drywall job and start hanging drywall." I said, "Okay." So after about 3, 4 weeks, there's not much to learning about drywall. Once you learn how to do
Yeah, yeah,
something, that's it. It's just like, okay,
yeah,
what else are you going to do? It's okay. So I came back to Morton and I said, "What, Morton? I know how to hang drywall now. Now what I do?" He says, "Well, do you know how to frame?" I said, "Well, no. Well, you need to frame because the drywall contractor has to frame. Go learn how to frame." I said, "Okay." So I went and I started framing. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So I was watching the people on the site and I said, "Okay, well, oh, he's doing this. Okay, well, I can do that." So I started doing it. I had no idea what I was doing. A month later, I said, "Okay, Morton, I can hang drywall, I can frame. Well, do you know how to finish?" I said, "Well, no." He said, "Okay, go learn how to finish." I said, "Okay." Okay, so I went and started learning how to finish. And about a month or two later, "Okay, Morton, I know how to hang. I know how to finish. I know how to frame. Now what?" He says, "Okay, now you're ready. to open your business because now you know the three parts of drywall. I said, okay, so what do I do now? He says to me, okay, do you have a lot of tools? I said, yeah. He says, okay, well, here's what I want you to do, but you got to do exactly what I tell you. If you do exactly what I tell you, you're going to be successful. If you don't, I'm not going to bother telling you. I said, no more, and I'll do whatever you tell me. I trusted this guy incredibly. He's okay. Well, go home this weekend. Put all your tools in a nice shed. You have a shed at home? He said, yeah, my dad's got a shed. I can clean it out. So okay, clean it out. Put all your tools in it, and then organize it real nice. Put everything nice in order, and then get a really good lock, just best lock you can find, and lock it, and then come back to class on Monday with a key. I said, okay, great. Well, I spent all weekend inventorying everything you could think of. And when that thing was done, I had everything nice and organized, super neat. I came back to class. Okay, Morton, here's the key. He says, okay. So he takes the key and he puts it in his pocket. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying to myself, what's he doing? He says, okay, go do drywall. You said you wanted to be a drywall contractor, go do drywall. I said how am I going to do that, Morton? I got to get my tools. I need my key back. He said, no, you're going to go do drywall without your tools. What? He says, yes, you're going to be a drywall contractor. You're going to own your own business now. There's one thing to be a laborer, and there's another thing to have employees and have a business. I said, Morton, I don't know how to do that. He says, well, you're going to figure it out. Well, I'm not going to get any work. He says, well, why is that? He says, I said to him, well, because I'm going to bid too expensive. I mean, if I'm going to pay people to do the work and I'm going to stand there and not do the work myself, people aren't going to hire me because I'm going to be too expensive because I got to charge more in order for me to make a living. He said, that's right. But you go ahead and do that. So I trusted him. And I didn't know it at the time, but he worked for a drywall company as an estimator at the time. So he started sending me work. These people did 20-story buildings. They get a call for somebody wanting their garage done or their addition done. They don't do that. So he started sending that to me. So I would get those jobs, and I learned how to estimate, and I learned how to do things doing these jobs. I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of things I didn't know how to do. I had to redo, learn how to texture, learn how to spray, learn everything. So after about 4 or 5 months, Morton comes to me one day, and he says, hey, and do you kind of know what you're doing right now? I says, yeah. He says, okay. Do you trust me? I said, yes, Morton, I trust you wholeheartedly. I said, do you really trust me? I says, yes. He says, okay, here's what you're going to do. I need you to find a warehouse space for a small office. I said, Morton, I can't afford that. Just do what I'm telling you. Do you trust me? I said, yes. Okay. I was scared out of my mind. So I found a warehouse space with a small office. I came back to Morton and I said, okay, Morton, I got a small warehouse space. Okay, what do I do now? He says, well, you're going to hire me and you're going to pay me $72,000 a year. We're talking 1986, 87. That's like 150, 200,000 today.
That's
I said,
above the
Morton,
median average income for an American today.
yeah. Well, that's what he was making back then as an estimator for a drywall company. Come to find out, that drywall company was going under because the owner wasn't managing it right. And Morton had the contacts for all the clients that they did the work for.
Wow.
So he says to me, he says, hey, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to this address and you're going to pick up a set of drawings and then you're going to bring them to me. I said, okay. So I went to this address. I picked up the drawings. I brought it to Morton. And then he says, okay, I'm going to put an estimate for you. So we do the estimate. He does the estimate. He tells me, okay, it's $200,000. That's what it's going to cost for us to do this as a drywall contractor. But I want you to go in there and tell them 170,000. I said, so I looked at the numbers that Morton gave me, and our job cost was like 65,000. So there was only like a $5,000 profit on a job that size. I said, Morton, we're not going to make any money at this. And do you trust me? I said, okay, all right, Morton, fine. All right. So I did it. I went and I told the guy $170,000. He says, okay, we're going to give you the contract. I was scared out of my mind. I just signed a contract. The biggest job I had done up to that point was maybe $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah.
And here I am signing a $170,000 contract for the federal building in downtown Miami, 16 stories, to do the firewalls. I had no idea what I was doing. But Morton said, don't worry, we're going to get it done. So we start the job, and we're just barely making it. 2 days after we start the job, Morton calls me and says, "Hey, and I need you to go to the contractor's office." I said, "Why is that?" Well, go, they're going to give you some drawings. Morton knew what I didn't know. 2 days after we started the job, he handed me a set of drawings for $1.5 million worth of work in change orders for that project. So Morton was playing me the whole time. He knew what was happening. I had no idea what I was doing, and he guided me through that. So, long story short, by 1989, I had 75 employees, and Morton passed away unexpectedly of cancer, and that was destroyed. It destroyed me when that happened. I was very fond of him. So the company was doing great. I was doing work all over the city, and I had a great reputation. And then people started coming to me and saying, "Well, you do drywall real good, but do you do acoustical ceilings?" It's the same thing that happened when I started out as a handyman. Yeah, I've done acoustic ceiling before, but I've seen it done, and I'll figure it out.
Everything's
So
doable.
yeah, so do you do tiles? Okay. So I started getting all these requests, and then I started doing these things. So then I changed my company, which was originally AG Drywall, Ayan Gonzalez Drywall. I changed it to Atlas Interiors. I started doing interior build out. So I started doing work for Burger King, McDonald's, Fredericks of Hollywood, malls. They would come in and put a store, and they need somebody to do the build out. And so I started doing that. I started doing small additions and things. And then that led into in 1995, I got my general contractor's license. And then I started doing general contracting. And then in 2004, and I'm skipping a lot, 2004, Florida got hit with 5 hurricanes in one year. And I was in the middle of doing a 150 house project for a developer. I was basically building the house for him. And somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, and FEMA is looking for somebody to provide manpower in Punta Gorda, Florida. They had a blue roof project. A what? A what? Well, they come down and they put tarps on people's houses after a hurricane, and they need people to tarp it. Are you interested?" Yeah, I'll go take a look at it. So I go talk to the contractor with FEMA, with the Army Corps of Engineers contractor, and they say, "Well, we need people to tarp these houses. This is how you do it." So I looked at it. "We can do that. So what are you paying?" And he gave me a price, and I did the math, and I said, "I can do that in 3 hours." And he's paying me $900 for 4 guys for 3 hours. $900? No way. This is impossible. Well, it was. So we started tarping, and then 2 weeks later, they called me and said, "Hey, and a hurricane just hit Pensacola. We need you to go up there. Can you put together 100 men?" I had like 15 guys. I said, "Yeah, I can put together 100 men. I don't know where I'm going to get 100 men."
Yeah,
So
man.
I just say, "Okay, yeah, sure." We were sleeping under a bridge while we were putting all these tarps. And then another hurricane hits, and then they need more people. So it got to where I had 400 men on the payroll,
Oh,
and they were
wow.
doing tarps all over the country because we had all these hurricanes that hit in the United
Yeah.
States.
And I was in
So I had
Mississippi after Katrina doing masonry
Katrina
work, and
in
I had an
Louisiana.
uncle that was actually tarping roofs for FEMA. I think they were paying him $600 per roof, and he was knocking out like 4 or 5 roofs a day by himself.
Yeah. Well, we were getting paid like 2,000 a roof, and we were paying guys
Crazy.
600.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So so I had people in Louisiana. I had people in Goshen, Mississippi. I had people in Miami because we got hit. Wilma hit Miami, and then I had stuff going in Pensacola. So I would come in after the hurricanes and tarp, and then you've got people coming up to you, "Sir, do you know somebody who can fix my house?" You're sitting in the middle of a disaster area, and the moment you show up, the neighbors start walking up to you. "I need somebody to fix my house. I need somebody to fix my house." And I'm like, "Holy moly, what do you do?" So I started setting satellite offices, and I started doing work all around insurance work. I started learning about the insurance industry. So, uh, 92, Andrew hit my house and my family in Miami. So I went through that. I went through all those hurricanes. So then, since then, I've been to every hurricane uh, until a couple years ago when Michael hit Panama City. When Sandy hit New York, I went up to New York. I was up there for 8 months. So I enjoyed that, but I got tired of it. I don't want to travel anymore. It's too much trouble. And I started learning the insurance industry. the insurance claims industry, which is mitigation, mold, fire, floods, water damage. And I really started getting into that heavy. Every time I would go home, I'd start reading and learning new things. So at this point, I hold about 20 certifications, from general contractor to hygienist to water dry out, structural drying, microbial, odor control, fire, contents handling. So everything that has to do with insurance work. It all started out as a handyman. So then a few months ago, we moved eventually to Central Florida. And a few months ago, I decided, I'm going to start teaching my son the business. He's 30 years old, and he's been working with me off and on here and there. And we finally decided, let's open a handyman business. Now, why did I pick handyman? I did my research, just like I did my research when I did the insurance work. The handyman industry is about a $7 billion a year industry. Okay, do your math. $7 billion a year industry. I don't need that many jobs. I don't need $7 billion worth of work. I only need $500,000 worth of work to make a $250,000 in this industry.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing business wise and you put it together with the work wise, you can make a lot of money in this industry. So I started the Handyman A team in Central Florida, and we're actually breaking ground next Monday. We've already got a van set up. It's loaded and got all the tools, and we've got all our website and all our stuff put together. And my son's going to run it. And basically what we're going to do is very simple. He's going to start out doing odd jobs here and there. And as soon as he starts to where he's got more than he can handle, we're going to bring somebody else in. And he's going to sit next to him and just drive around and learn how to do it. The handyman industry is very profitable and very easy to get into, incredibly easy. You can make serious money doing it if you know what you're doing and if you do your work right. And if you do, like I tell people, to be successful, just do what no one else does, and you're going to be successful. What I mean by that is clean up after yourself, look professional, have a uniform, have a clean truck, speak professional, have your brochures, answer the phone. Just do what no one else does, and you're going to be successful. It really is that simple. It really is.
I completely agree. I preach the same thing. There is almost no professional competition. I say almost. There's a little bit, but it's very minuscule. There's almost no professional competition. Everyone who refers to themselves as a handyman and who focuses only on handyman type of work is not also trying to be a very legitimate, very professional business.
Yeah,
so it's wide open for people like you.
Yeah. Now something that I've been watching your channel for several months since the beginning of the year, and I've been following your growing your channel, and I reached out to you because I wanted to share some information that might help some of these people that are trying to get into the business. It basically, it all comes down to the way you think and the way you see things. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand how simple it is to have your own business and how beneficial it is. Because most people, and you're talking for somebody who's been self-employed since the age of 18. I cannot work for someone. Yeah. The moment somebody disrespects me in any way, I got to walk away. I can't. I won't accept it. I won't accept it.
Yeah.
So I have that thing. It's I don't know what if it's a fetish. You can call it whatever you want. I cannot work for someone, and being self-employed is the only way to go, in my opinion. Not everybody can do it, but if you choose to do it, it's very easy to do. A lot easier than you think. What people need to realize is that your mind is like a hard drive. If you have a hard drive and you put Microsoft Word in that hard drive, and then you tell the hard drive, you go to the hard drive, you go to the computer, and you try to draw a picture, you can't, because the program is Microsoft Word. You can write a term paper, you can write a book, but you can't draw a picture. And then if you load Microsoft Excel, you can't use it like a GPS. It won't do it. Your mind is just like a hard drive. Whatever you put into that hard drive are the limitations of what that hard drive is capable of doing. So the average person doesn't understand what it really is that happened to them in their lifetime that caused them to think the way they do, to where they'll think, well, I may not be successful, or I can't charge that, or whatever the case might be. And that comes from the way you were programmed, the way you were taught. If you go back into history, and I don't want to get too far off, but this is very important for people to understand. The Industrial Revolution started from 1760 to 1840. And before that, the only people that could read and write were people that were with the clergy, with the church. They were politicians' children or rich people's children. So 95, 97% of the population of the world could not read or write. They were serfs, and they worked in the farm. They collected chickens, and they worked for all these people that could read or write. Well, these people that could read or write, they would send their children to their schools where they taught them what they needed to learn to become successful. Nobody else went to those schools. So they were deprived of that information. So in the Industrial Revolution, they started building factories. And there was a big problem that happened where the factories needed people to run the machinery, but people couldn't read or write. So the only people that could read or write are the children of the rich who don't want to work in the factory. So how do they fix that? So the factory started, during Sunday school, they started teaching you how to read and write. And they started teaching you how to do things that they need you to know so you can work in the factory. So that was back in Germany, which was Persia at the time. They went to the government and they said, hey, why don't you guys start a school system? This is how public schools were created. And everything I'm telling you, you can just research and you'll verify it's as legit. This is how schools were started in Germany. So the government started charging people taxes, and then they would put the national school system. And then they would start teaching the people how to read and write. But what they were actually doing is what I call creating meat machines to man the metal machines. So you would send your kids to school and they would teach you, sit down at this one place. Before that, you were a farmer. You were here 10 minutes and then you were over there feeding the chickens, and then you were over there cutting the grass, and you're over there doing whatever you're doing. Now they're teaching you to sit at a cubicle for a day and go to lunch at this time and go to school at this time. And this is what they started teaching. And then they started teaching you what they wanted you to learn. So now go back to when you were in school. When was the last time a teacher ever told you anything about how to open a business, how money works, what is money, what is fiat money, what is actual money, what is gold and silver, how does all this work?
Yeah.
And how do you
I can
finance a
count the
house?
number of teachers who did that on one finger.
They don't do it. It's not their fault. It's because teachers are told to teach what the government tells them to teach. The government is controlled by lobbyists. Lobbyists are the corporations. Corporations don't want you to learn how to open a business. They don't want you to learn how to be self-employed. They don't want you to hire and fire people, because then you're their competition. So you come out of this system, and now somebody tells you, you should become a handyman. You open your own business, and people are like, oh, well, that's kind of risky. Why? Because from the time you're a kid, they're telling you, go to school, get an education, get a job, get in debt, buy a house, pay your debt, pay your taxes, retire, Social Security, and die. That's all you learn. That's all they teach you.
That's the path for almost everybody, if they're lucky.
Yeah, so that's how everybody's programmed. So when they run into a program like yours, sometimes they might get intimidated and say, well, look, all these people, they're opening their own business. I don't know if I can do that. It's just because that's the way you were programmed. So all you have to do is, just like a hard drive, you reformat it. You start loading it with the information that you need so that you then can do the things that you want to do. Opening a handyman business, how do you do it? Very simple. Learn how to install a ceiling fan. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
And then install a ceiling fan. Once you know how to install a ceiling fan, okay, I know how to install a ceiling fan. Now we'll learn how to hang a door.
Yep.
Okay, well, now that I know how to hang a door, we'll learn how to tile. Well, now that I know how to tile, we'll learn how to pull carpet, and then learn how to install an alarm, and learn how to paint a wall. And then that then progresses into your future. I started out as a handyman. Then I went to a drywall subcontractor. Then I became a general contractor. Then I became a contractor that works in multiple states. And then I became a mitigation specialist. Now I'm at a point where I'm 62 years old. I got probably 20 years left in me. And I'm basically self-employed. I can work anywhere. I can do anything. I can. I'm a consultant. I'm an expert witness when there's disputes, and I'm at a level of income that you wouldn't believe. It's easily attainable. Being a handyman is a doorway to a lot of money. Look at this example, which people don't seem to understand. Imagine you're a handyman. You're in Central Florida, like I am, and then when people need a property manager needs a ceiling fan done, or he needs a move out, or he needs a room painted, or he needs a broken glass fixed. That's just covering your expenses. What happens when a hurricane comes and he has 400 homes,
Yeah.
and all 400 homes need 400 roofs? Who does he hire? Well, I know Joe the handyman. Let me ask him. Joe, well, Joe the handyman knows Ayan the contractor, or knows Joe the contractor. And all he has to do is say, let me put these two guys together. And he goes to Joe and he says, hey, I got 400 houses I need roofed. You want to do the job? Can I have a fee, a finder's fee, a commission, or I can be your
Yeah.
salesman?
Yeah. And on something
I've
like
seen
that,
this.
it's a 3% finder's fee, although low, would still end up being an ungodly amount of money for somebody who's never done anything
Yeah.
like that.
When I was in Miami in Wilmette, this was around 2006 or five. I forget what year it hit. One of the guys that worked for me came to me and says, hey, and I had work up to here. He says, hey, and there's this condo association that a friend of mine is a manager of a condo association. Uh, they need their roofs done. Would you be interested? And I said, okay, well, let me go look at it. So I go to talk to these people. He set up an appointment. I show up, and there was 11 condo presidents that showed up in the evening. And that night, I signed up 75 buildings, $3.5 million signed up in an hour. And as the contractor, what did I do? Well, I hired a roofing contractor. And then I said, okay, I'm going to pay you so much. And then they're paying me this. So I was the contractor. I just did the middleman. I learned how to do that. I started out as a handyman. I learned how to patch roofs. I learned how to do this. I learned how to do that. So the handyman industry can take you to the level that you choose. If you want to just be a person that just makes $1,000 a week and you go home and you have, great. If you want to get to where you have 5 or 10 employees, great. You can do that too. A $7 billion a year industry, it's wide open. 3 months ago, somebody, a neighbor that has a church that he goes to, and their gutters are falling off. Hey, can you come by and take a look? This is a handyman job. So I go by and I said, well, look, this particular thing, it is kind of, I really can't tell what needs to be done, so I have to charge you by the hour. Which I don't normally charge by the hour, but while I haven't opened the handyman business yet, I'm still tied up trying to fix things. So I put 4 guys to fix gutters. They've been doing it we're going on 6 weeks fixing gutters on this church. It's not a regular church, it's a huge church. And there's these copper gutters and the stuff behind us rotting. So they're sitting there for 6 weeks. I got 5 guys working full time. I'm charging by the hour. So if I'm charging $25 an hour, if I'm paying 25 an hour and I'm charging 50, I'm just a middleman. So as a handyman, when I was doing handyman work, I did the physical work myself. And then I got to the point where I had my first employee. And then I got to where I got 2 employees. And then while I was doing that, I was going to school at night. And I was learning how to become a contractor. And I got my contractor's license. And then slowly and surely it slowly developed. And it's at a point now where I won't get out of bed if I'm not going to make $1,000 that day at the level that I'm at. You're not going to start out at that level, but you can very easily make $500 to $1,000 a day as a full-time handyman just by yourself, providing that you have the organization
Yep.
and the whereabouts to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree with that. And I like that you stressed the word easily, because it may not be easy physically. But for me, when I use the word easily, I mean, is it hard to figure out or not? And it's not hard to figure out how to do it. The only hard part for almost anybody is making the choice on a daily basis, 7 days a week, that you are in fact going to get up and do that. And what else I like is that the way you've told this story, um, I've been trying to formulate this. I don't know if I should call it a philosophy, but in my head, there's this idea for me that I feel like I've maybe not always done, but mostly, where for me, I see a potential somewhere and I don't view it as unattainable. I don't really view anything as unattainable. There's just simply a series of steps that have to be taken to attain it. And then you've just got to decide, am I willing to take those steps? You know, because I'm not personally, there's levels of success that I'm not looking for because I do know what the steps are to get there. And if you take those steps, you can't take other steps. You know, you have to go one way or the other. But your story very clearly takes you from, you know, the very first step of just posting your ad on that bulletin board. That was the next step for you. And you did that. And then more was requested of you. And you chose to take another step. And then you saw a different opportunity and you took another step. And even when you were what I would call big, you know, when you were making real money and running a very serious business, even at that point still, when you could have chosen to stay there and maybe been happy, maybe not, everybody's different, but you could have stayed there and been very well off. But even then you still went, oh, well, I could do this in multiple states and I could learn, you know, the insurance claims industry. And I like that because that's for me, one of the things I hope everybody can understand is that nothing really truly is unattainable. It's just simply you have to figure out what steps are necessary to get to that point, and then either take them or decide that those aren't steps you want to take and find a different goal to pursue. But it's all just a series of steps that you took, some of which I can take if I choose to. All the guys watching this video right now, they can just simply choose to take the next step. You don't have to have it all figured out on day one with a start point and an end point. You just have to know what the next step is and take that next step.
As you're getting into this, and as you start to grow, and you start to make real, I'm telling you, you can make some real serious money in this industry. Okay, there comes a point that you need to say you should say to yourself, I've had enough. I reached that point in 2006. I retired in 2006, where I had enough. I made enough money, and I've had enough. I could have kept going, but at what cost? You know, there comes a point where you've got enough money that you can survive without having to work. You really need that much more money? You know, when is enough
Exactly.
enough?
Yeah. What's
I reached
important
that
to
point.
you?
Yeah, I reached that point in 2006. Basically, I mean, like I asked people, you know, what is your definition of being rich, or what is your definition of wealth? To me, the definition of wealth is freedom. Okay, and to me, nothing is more valuable than to have free time. When I had 400 employees and I was working in 5 different states, I was working 90, 100 hours a week. I was traveling from here to there. I hated what I was doing. And then I finally said, I just said, I've had enough. This is enough. So I let it all go and I started up all over again, just doing small jobs. Small jobs. So here I am today. I could sign with what I have in experience. I could sign 20, $30 million worth of work if I wanted to. Do you really want all the employees and all the headaches? So what am I doing? I'm helping my son open a handyman business, and I'm
Yeah.
having fun, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm
That's
teaching,
great.
and he's learning, and these
And
four
that's what the
guys that I have
freedom
in mind,
is.
yeah, these four guys that I have in mind, I'm gonna put them through that. They're gonna learn how to have that, but they're not just learning how to become handyman. I'm also teaching them get your own license, get your own insurance, open your corporation,
Yeah.
and I tell them, so look, people people have to think. You got to think because you've been programmed the way the system wants you to work and the way the system wants you to think. You have to learn to think outside the box. You know, for example, I'll ask people, say, what is your biggest expense in your lifetime? And they'll usually say, "Oh, my house," or they'll say, "I don't know, medical bills or whatever." And it's not. Your biggest expense in your lifetime is taxes, beyond a doubt.
That's
Taxes.
really true.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. What class have you ever been taught anything about taxes? None, because they don't want you to know about taxes. But the rich, the successful, they're teaching their children about taxes. So if you know that the biggest expense in your lifetime is taxes, doesn't it make sense you should dedicate an hour a week to learning something about taxes? I had a guy one time come to me, 10 years ago. Mr. Gonzalez, I'd like to get a raise. I was paying him, I don't know, 15 or 18 dollars an hour. I don't remember what I was paying him. He wanted a $2 raise. And I said to him, I said, listen, I'll tell you what, you've got a choice. I'll give you the $2 raise, or I'll give you this book, which is like a $20 book. If you take the book, within 10 years, you will have made at least $100,000, because it's going to teach you how to save money on taxes. Or I'll give you the $2 raise. He took the $2 raise. That's fine. It's his choice. But if you learn the concept that taxes is your biggest expense, okay, well, what is one of the best ways to reduce my taxes? Open a handyman business. Because now you put your truck in the business, and your vehicle is a company expense, and your cell phone is a company expense. This is what the rich do. This is what the business people do, but they don't teach you this in school.
Yeah,
So
a
you got,
portion of your electric bill, a portion of this electric bill right here for me in this office is a business
yeah,
expense.
you got two people. This guy makes $1,000. This guy makes $1,000. This guy opens a business. This guy makes $1,000. He makes $1,000. He pays $200 in taxes. He's left with $800. This guy over here, not with the $800, he makes his $800 mortgage payment. He's left with zero. This guy over here opens a business, a handyman business, for example, and the handyman business receives $1,000. Now, the handyman business has to pay the car payment, has to pay the cell phone, it has to pay the uniform, it has to pay the fuel, it has to pay the tools, it has to pay all these expenses, and is left with $300. It pays you $300. Now you're paying maybe $30 in taxes. You're left with $270. This guy was left with $200. That's math 101.
Yeah.
That right there should tell you why you need to open a handyman business.
Do you want to give us the name of the book that if you could pick one book specific to taxes?
The one book I would say, I'll get you the name of it. It was written by Robert Kiyosaki, I think 20 years ago. And it was about how to open a corporation. And it explains in that book why you need to open a corporation and what are the benefits of having a corporation. Okay, so for example, you're gonna pay your cell phone, right? Well, if you're an employee, you receive $100, you pay $20 in taxes, and then you pay $80 for your cell phone. You're left with zero. If you're a company, you receive $100, you pay $80 for the cell phone, which is a company expense. You're left with $20. The company then pays you $20. You pay $2 in taxes. You're left with $18. Well, number one, you're left with zero. Number two, you have $18. Multiply that over every single month, just on your cell phone, for the next 30 or 40 years until you retire.
And you've made
They don't
100
teach you
grand.
this in school.
Yeah.
They
So
don't teach you.
I want to reiterate this to everybody watching right now too. What you're talking about is not only available to somebody who's made it to where you've made it to. This applies to me, and this
Yes.
applies to Joe, who's getting paid $20 an hour right now at a construction job, who may or may not open his. This applies to us down here as well.
Yes.
This isn't fancy schmancy tax stuff that only rich people can take advantage of. This is things I can do and that my subscribers can do right now in
Yes.
order to start building their wealth right now.
Yeah. If I was a young kid just getting out of college, or just getting out of high school, or or I just got fired from my job, whatever it is. If you're working at a job right now and you're making, let's say, $15 an hour, okay, that's your 40-hour week job. I learned at a very young age that to be successful, you have to do what needs to be done and a little bit more. You have to do this and a little bit more. You have to do this and a little bit more. What do I mean by that? You got a job, you're making $40 or 40 hours a week. You're working 40 hours a week. Okay, well, that's 40 hours. There's a lot more than 40 hours a week available to you. So you go to work from 7 to 4, whatever it is you work. You got 3, 4 hours in the day. You can go hang a ceiling fan. You can go hang a door. You can go paint a room on the side. Well, you can do that through your business. So you have your regular job. You open a business. To open a business in Florida is like $85. You go to the myflorida.gov and you open the corporation. It costs you $85. Okay, now you got a company. So now that company starts doing the handyman work. So you're working, you're making $15 an hour, whatever you're making, and then you put your sign at Home Depot, wherever you're going to put it, your business card, you start handing them out. And then someday somebody calls you for a ceiling fan. Okay, well, that goes to your business. Before you know it, your business now starts to grow through referral and property managers or however it is that you start to grow. And it comes a point that you can't afford to go to work at $18 an hour because you're making $100 an hour or $50 an hour with your handyman business. And it's a gradual, you don't just stop everything you're doing and become a handyman if you can't afford to do that. But you can do it on the weekends. You can do it in the evenings. And before you know it, you have a business. That business is what pays for your cell phone. That business is what pays for your car payment because you're using your car for the business, your gas, your tires, all these things that you normally receive a paycheck, pay taxes, you're left with this. And then, well, no, your business has these expenses. It pays it.
Yeah.
Whatever's left over is your income. And that is Handyman 101. And the great thing about the handyman industry, I'm telling you from experience, okay? I chose handyman for a reason. I know my industry. In the construction industry, I'm going to give you some numbers that people aren't going to believe. But you're hearing it not from the school. You're hearing it from somebody who actually does it, okay? In the construction industry, I know people that on a bad year make $500,000 a year. I know people that have made $1 million in 1 year on one job. They didn't start there, but they worked their way there. They eventually got there. They learned how to do this, they learned how to do that, and they eventually got to that point. The handyman business, like I said, is a $7 billion a year business. Okay. These people that are listening to your program, they need to understand what I'm about to tell them. This is very important because people get scared of charging a certain amount. Oh, I go in Craigslist in my area and I'll see handyman $65 an hour or $65 service charge. I don't send my guy out for less than $135. That's just to get in the truck. Okay. Yeah. And then when he gets there, then he charges $200 and something for the ceiling fan installation. Okay. That's what we do. Now people say that's crazy. You can't get that. Well, I'm getting that. I'm getting that. Yeah. I get those prices. Exactly. Okay. Here's what they need to understand. There are different levels of business. Okay. You can go to McDonald's and buy a $4 cheeseburger, which probably is $8 now with inflation. Or you can go to Five Guys and buy a $14 cheeseburger. Or you can go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and buy a $90 cheeseburger. Okay. There's a market for each one. Yeah. I'm not looking to market little Miss McGillicuddy who lives on Social Security with $1,200 a month in a trailer. That's not my market. I leave that for the guys that want to charge $65 an hour. Yeah. I market the people that need it done now, and they just want it done.
And need it done right. And need it done by a company that's still going to be around in 2 years to come back and make a change to it or something. They need it. They need to know that it's just done and it's never going to be a thing again. And you don't get that from the guy who's charging $65 an hour down the road.
Right. Now you can't go to a property manager, which is what you're targeting, in shorts and an old scratched up, beat up pickup truck and expect to get top dollar. It ain't gonna happen. But he probably won't hire you anyway. He's gonna hire somebody like our company, which is a brand new van, which you don't have to start with a brand new van. I started out with a Volkswagen Beetle. That's how I started installing ceiling fans. Okay. But the company that we're putting now, we're targeting a different market. We're targeting the people that are I just want it to get fixed. I just want it done. I want it done fairly. I don't want phone calls. I don't want complaints. I just want it done. That's the target market. So I'm going for the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. When you go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, the waiters, they're in suits and they're very professional. And the silverware is, but when you go to McDonald's, okay, now some people go to McDonald's, some people go to Ruth's Chris. I target Ruth's Chris. That's my market. And when your handyman start marketing, think about that. Do I want to market a 55 and over community that lives on Social Security, or do I want to market the neighborhood where the football players live and the baseball players live and the politicians live? Do I want to go after the apartment complex, Section 8, where they're paying $1,200 rent, or do I want to go to Miami Beach where they have $10 million condos? So the market's there and the margins are there. People just have to recognize that it's there and not be afraid to pursue it.
Yeah.
And so I want to share one quick little story that will help people understand the concept of what I'm trying to get to them. I know this is long, but I could go for
all
hours.
the time you need, sir.
This is a story that I learned about 20 years ago. And when I heard this story, it was like, oh, wow, it really opened my horizons to understand something. And it's a story of this man who goes to this secluded island on vacation. And he sees this little old man. And the old man's got these beautiful bamboo trees. They're like 80 feet high. And they're like this big around at the base. Beautiful bamboo trees. And the guy said, man, these are beautiful trees. I wish I could have this. The old man says to him, oh, here, no problem. So he takes a little bamboo plant, about 6 inches tall, and he gives it to him. And he says, listen, here's what you do. Take this home, and you got to do exactly what I tell you. If you do exactly what I tell you, you're going to have success. So this is what he tells him. Put this in the ground, and every day, water it and fertilize it. And you just keep doing that. No matter what happens, rain or shine, every day, water it and fertilize it. So the guy says, oh, thank you, sir, very much. And so he takes the plant home. He plants it in his backyard, and he does exactly what the old man tells him. He goes out there every day, and he's like humming and singing. And he's after about 30 days, he's looking at the plant, and it is the same size. But he remembers what the old man told him, and he keeps watering it, and he keeps doing it. And 6 months pass, and the plant's still only 6 inches tall. And he starts to think to himself, I don't get it. What's going on? He remembers the old man. Water it, fertilize it. Water. So, okay, I'm going to listen to the old man. I'm going to water it. I'm going to fertilize it. 9 months has passed. He goes out there and the plant is still the same. But he listens to the old man. So then a year passes. And on one day after a year, he goes out to water and fertilize it. And the plant is 80 feet high. It grew overnight 80 feet. And so he's looking up and he's like, holy crap. Okay, so what happened? This is a perfect analogy for what you're trying to teach people. And let me explain. He's watering and fertilizing it. And he looks at it and he gets frustrated because he says, it's not doing anything. Nothing's changing. Everything's just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Keep working at it. Keep working at it. What was happening was it was growing underground. It was developing a root system to sustain the growth. And this is what happens in business. If you every day follow what's called the 1% rule, the 1% rule basically means you set a goal 5 years from now, and you make it a set goal that you will do come hell or high water, at least 1% towards that goal every day. You don't have to do half of it, 1%. You water and you fertilize it every single day. Every time you read a book, every time you listen to a podcast, every time you listen to your station and other YouTube channels, and you listen to people like me, and you go and you talk to people, every time you do that, you're watering and you're fertilizing that plant. And every time you do that, a root sticks out. and then another root sticks out. And when you read a book on taxes, and you read a book on finance, and you read a book on business, another root, and another root, and another root, and another root. And here's what happens. A year later, if that plant had not gone through that and it shot up within 30 days, 80 feet, the first wind that comes by would have knocked it over. That's how business is. You have to give your business every day a little bit of water, a little bit. You got to read something new. You got to look at another podcast. You got to listen to somebody else. Try something. Learn ceiling fans. Learn how to put baseboard. Learn how to do this. Learn how to do that. Every day you're adding another root to that plant. If you do that within 5 years, and you give yourself 5 years, a hurricane will come by, and that bamboo plant will stand up against that hurricane, no matter how strong the wind, because the foundation, the root system for the business is there. You can't have a successful business in 30 days. First, you got to open your corporation. Then you got to get your federal tax ID number. Then you got to do this. Then you do that. And that's one of the things I like about your channel when you're doing you're telling people, do this first, do this next, do this next.
Well, because I did half of mine in the wrong order.
Yeah, when you did your video on what to do with how to market the property manager, do this first. Do this. There's no shortcuts. But I promise you that if you do the steps and you do them right, you might get frustrated. Nobody's called. I haven't. Let me tell you something. I worked my butt off for 10, 15 years, and I was dead broke for 10, 15 years. And it just took one job. But when that job came my way, I had 10 or 15 years of experience in me that I was able to take that job. And in 1 year, I made more money than I made in those 15 years. Just like that. And that changed my life. Okay. But had I not done what I did, had I not worked as hard as I did and sacrificed as much as I did and dedicated the time that I did, and that opportunity had come by, it would have passed me. Or I would have tried it and I would have fallen flat because I did not have the foundation. So to your listeners, I say, remember the bamboo plant in everything you do.
Yeah, it's a really outstanding story.
Yeah, every time you do anything, just listening to it's a little tiny root. But when you add 1,000 of these little roots into that root system, when all of a sudden a big opportunity shows up, one day you go see a property manager and he's going to tell you, hey, I have 1,000 pieces of property I need to maintain. Can you handle it? Well, if I have the root system, if the company's set up, if it's licensed, if it's insured, if it has all the steps that need to be followed, yeah, I can do that. Not a problem.
Yeah, it's really great.
I have seen more people fail. When I say this industry, I mean the trades, whether it's a handyman or a plumber or electrician. I have seen more people fail because they had too much work. It's hard to understand. You had to see it and you had to experience it to understand. I have seen more people fail because they have too much work than because they have too little. Because when you have too much work, if you're not set up, if you don't have the foundation to handle it, you fall apart. You go under. So I tell your listeners, man, if you're going to be on a bicycle, if I was 18, 19 years old, oh my God, the opportunities today are unbelievable for these people.
Yeah.
Every day, listen to these statistics. Every day, 7 baby boomers retire in the construction or in the trades, which is the trades, and they're replaced by 3 people. So for every 7 baby boomer that retires, only 3 are replacing. I did my research before I decided to open this handyman business. The handyman industry is projected to increase 10% per year for the next 12 years. All these baby boomers are moving to Florida. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to all these places. They don't want to hang ceiling fans. They don't want to paint doors. They don't want to change locks. And they're rich. A lot of these baby boomers have money. Some don't. But I'm not targeting the ones that don't. I'm targeting the ones that have money.
Exactly.
So they come down to Florida. They sell their house in New York for $3 million, and they buy a house here for $600,000 cash, and they got $1.5 million left, and they want to install some curtains. They don't want to install curtains. They want to hire somebody to install curtains. Well, here we are. Yeah, we're right there for you. We'll be happy to do it for you. No problem.
Yeah.
This industry is wide open for these young people coming up. When I was their age, if I wanted to learn how to hang a door, I either went to the Home Depot
And yeah,
and sat there
exactly.
for hours reading the books, or I had to find a library. I would have to go 5 or 10 miles, get a taxi,
Yeah.
or ride my bike to a library to find if they had a book
Yeah.
on how to hang doors.
It took
If
you a
I want to
day
hang a door
just to
today,
access information.
if I want to hang a door today, I go to how do you hang a door on YouTube, and I got 20 people trying to teach me how to hang a door. It's
Yep.
sitting there,
Yeah.
literally sitting there.
Every expert in every field has made a video or 20 of them on every single task. If I want to replace an alternator in a 1994 Ford Taurus, there's not just alternator videos. There's a video for how to change an alternator in a 1994 Ford Taurus, and there's probably
Yeah,
more than one of them. And to be clear to the audience, although I did grow up a cabinet maker and in a family that did a lot of construction and I had tons of exposure, I had that advantage. But when I started this specific business right here that I'm running now, when I started it almost 4 years ago, I can sincerely say more than half the jobs that I now do on a routine basis that I consider myself knowledgeable in and fully capable of, I had never done in my life until I did them on the job in this business. The first time I needed to change a shower cartridge, I didn't know what a shower I'd never thought about what was behind that knob. It never occurred to me to even wonder what was behind there until I had a dripping shower and went on YouTube and looked it up and figured out how to change a shower cartridge. All of the tasks that we may or may not end up doing, they're all very doable by everybody. There's nothing special about any of them. The only thing special is, are you going to just decide that they're not special and therefore go learn how to do it and do it? Or are you going to decide that that's a special thing that you should probably leave to the experts without realizing that, an expert electrician is just a guy like you who went and got a job doing electrical work. An expert plumber is a guy just like you who just went and got a job doing plumbing work and figured out, oh, it's just pipes and glue and solder and, 90s and 45s.
nobody was born knowing how to replace a toilet.
Exactly.
The best plumber in the world had to do his first toilet, and he had no idea what he was doing
Yeah.
the first time. It's really that simple. Now, what you need to understand is that this industry can take you as far as you want it to take you. You can install ceiling fans for the rest of your life. You can hang doors for the rest of your life, or you install ceiling fans while you open your business, and then you start learning about payroll, and then you start hiring someone and you teach them how to do the ceiling fan, and then you step away and you let them hang the ceiling fans while you're looking for more clients, and then you start working on getting more clients, and then you have two people that are installing ceiling fans for you, and then you keep going for more clients. I guarantee you, Ray, you yourself, if you wanted to, within 30 days, you could have 50 jobs a day that need to be done. If you wanted to go out and find the work, I guarantee you can find it.
Yeah, I'm sure I
There's
could
no
pick
question.
up a dozen property managers next week if I wanted to. And I could find a dozen handymen that I could hire to go do the work. They'd have
But
to
you
have
got to
their own
do.
vehicles. I couldn't
Oh,
acquire a dozen vehicles for them. And that's not precisely my goal at the moment. But your point being
exactly.
is that it is absolutely possible for somebody who decides that's what they want to do and
Correct.
just simply figures out okay, so let's go into the steps then. Let's say right now you're speaking to a lot of brand new handymen on YouTube. Maybe they've started their business, maybe not, but let's just say mostly all new guys who are still figuring stuff out. When they reach the point that they know what they're doing, when they figure out, okay, here's how you deal with property managers. I now know all the tools that I need. I have a good idea of the inventory. I've got a process for the most part for at least most of my jobs, and I'm comfortable. And now I can just sort of reliably go out day after day and make $600 to $1,000 a day on any day that I want to make that. When they reach that point, what's the next step? Let's say they want to grow, right? They want to step out of being the guy with a hammer in his hands and they want to move into that being a business owner and steering the ship rather than shoveling the coal into the boilers. What is the next step for the guy who's reached that level of comfort and is now ready to start growing?
Well, let me share this bit of information for you. What is the highest paying profession in the world? I ask that question to people. Nobody ever gets it right. They'll say, oh, a doctor, oh, an attorney, oh, a politician, oh, a prostitute. The highest paying profession in the world since the beginning of mankind is the negotiator. Okay. What does he mean by that? Well, I'm going to go and some guy wants me to paint his house. All right. He wants me to do it for $8,000 and I'm doing it for 12. And we bicker back and forth. Or I'm going to go buy a car. The dealer wants $80,000 and I want to pay 60. And we bicker for it. We negotiate. Okay. That negotiation process takes maybe 5 minutes. So if the guy wants to sell me the truck for 50 or 80 and I want to pay 50 and we settle at 65, I say $25,000 in 5 minutes. A doctor doesn't make $25,000 in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The highest paying profession in the world is the negotiator. Who is the negotiator? The owner of the company. So I tell your people that are listening to this podcast, strive to always be the negotiator in everything you do. If you're going to open a handyman business, you're the owner. So when you go and the guy wants to pay you $200 for the ceiling fan, no, I'm sorry, it's $250. That 2 minutes to come to that negotiation, you made $30 because you settled on $230 instead of $200. You see what I'm saying? So if the highest paying job is the negotiator, and the negotiator is the owner of the company, then you then apply the 80-20 rule. 80% of what you do any given day makes 20% of the money you make. 20% of the things you do in any given day make 80% of the money you make. This is a rule. It's a
That's
law.
the Pareto principle.
Correct. So use logic. What do you want to do? Well, I want to do 20% all day. So when I start getting enough work to where I can hire someone to install a ceiling fan for $25 an hour that I'm charging $200 for, that's my goal. That's the next step. Get to the point where you have enough work and enough satisfied customers that you can afford to bring in your first employee. And he's gonna shadow you. He's gonna be with you for 2-3 months, however long it takes until you train him. So I'm gonna go install 3 ceiling fans by myself. Okay. Well, if I bring Jim with me, I can do it in half the time. Well, if I'm paying him $25 an hour and I'm charging $200 and whatever dollars, and I'm doing one ceiling fan while he's doing the other, well, I'm making $250 over here, and I'm making another $200 over there at the same time. So I'm actually making $400. That's the negotiator, the owner of the company. Strive always to be, whenever you can, the owner of the company. And remember this. I know I'm giving you a fire hose of information, but I want to get as much as I can out to your people. Every day, every morning, Savannah of Africa, the slowest running gazelle opens his eyes. And the first thought that comes to his mind when he opens his eyes is, today I have to run faster than the fastest lion. If not, I'm going to get eaten. At the same exact time that gazelle opens his eyes, the slowest running lion opens his eyes. And the first thought that comes to his mind is, today I have to run faster than the slowest gazelle. If not, I'm going to starve to death. What's the moral of the story? When you wake up tomorrow morning, you better be running if you want to survive. It's really that simple. You want to make it in this business? It's really that simple. Do a little bit more. Hang that ceiling fan, and then at night, do a little bit more. Learn how to do this. And now you can do this and this. And then when you learn how to do these 2 things, then at night, learn how to open your business. Do that a little bit more. People are not willing to do that a little bit more. And that little bit more is all it takes to reach success. Now I've got 44 years behind me. Okay. So you got a guy that's just starting out now, or a guy that's my age and wants to start out. Doesn't matter. You're there. I'm 62. I got at least another 20 years ahead. I tried retiring in 2006. I got bored out of my mind. I had to come back to work. It's like,
you can't just shut that down.
You can't. So whether you're 50 years old and just got fired, or whether you're 20 years old and trying to figure out what to do, install your first fan, install your first door, change your first hardware, change your first wax toilet ring, change your first garbage disposal. Just start, and then do a little bit more. At nighttime, start reading how to open a business. Listen to your podcast. Listen to this podcast. Listen to this, guys. Build that root system. Build that root system. And then one day you're going to get an opportunity and you're going to be able to jump on it and seize it. And you're not going to fall over. Statistically, in the construction industry, in the trades industry, 95% of companies fail within the first 5 years. That's an unbelievable statistic. Within 5 years, 95% of corporations fail. Why? It's very simple. I sent this to you in an email one time. I used to teach classes and mentor coming contractors, and I would ask them in the class, I would say, how many of you know how to build a garage addition to a house? Everybody would raise their hand. How many of you know how to build a 2-story house? Everybody raised their hand. How many of you know how to do a 5-story building? Maybe half the class will raise their hand. Then I would ask, how many of you know how to build a business? And all you hear is crickets. They don't teach you that in school. You have to do the little bit more. You have to go out of your way. You have to get it from you, get it from me, get it from anywhere. You got to be a sponge and build that root system. And I'm telling you, if you do it, you're destined for success. I had a
Be a
guy.
sponge to things that you don't necessarily even think are going to be all that useful to you, because I can't count the number of times when I didn't watch a YouTube video about how to do a job that I already know how to do, that I've done 100 times and that I think I'm an expert at. And then I'll go watch a YouTube video on it, maybe because I'm about to make my own video and I just want to see what videos everyone else is making so I don't miss any points. And then in that process, I find out about a tool that I absolutely should have known existed, but I never knew existed, simply because I thought I knew what I was doing already and I didn't need to go research that simple task. And it's the same thing with the YouTube channel itself too, where I'll have things pop up on my YouTube that are about running or growing a YouTube channel properly, or about thumbnails, or about keywords and descriptions. And I think I'm already familiar with this piece of information. And sometimes I'll open it up anyways. And it seems like I can't consume information that other people have put out to help people without finding some value. There's almost never a time, even if I already knew 99% of it, the 1% of it that I wasn't aware of yet, kind of like you alluded to the root system, is one more root and one more root and one more root, which all combines together. And I've experienced the root system thing as well, because I've been doing this almost 4 years now, 3.5. And it felt to me like for 3 of those years, all I did was work. And I when I say 12 hours a day, I mean more than 12 hours a day, honestly, every single day of the week. And it never ended. And I always had the plan. I always knew what the direction was. I always knew what I wanted the result of today's work to be in 6 months or a year. And I kept talking about this sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Like, if I just keep doing this, if I just get a little more inventory, just one more little tiny piece of inventory to save me that one more trip to Home Depot, or if I figure out how to cut this step out of that process so I do that job 3 minutes faster, so it's 20 minutes instead of 23, then someday I'm going to reach a point where I actually have some time, number one, for my family, and then maybe number 2, if I'm lucky, for me. And it felt like 3 years, where that last year out of the 3, I started thinking, I don't know if I know what I'm doing because I keep saying where I'm going and where I'm going to get to, and I never feel any closer. And then all of a sudden, it was Thanksgiving last year. I needed to take time off to go to Texas to see my family for Thanksgiving. It was something we planned 8 months in advance. So I had to knock out enough work before I left to make sure that while I was gone and then coming back and getting back into the jobs, that missing gap was going to be covered by invoices from weeks ago that are paying out. And I did that, and it didn't feel like anything special before I went to Texas. And it was when I got back, I immediately dove straight back into the work, scared that if I didn't do enough before I left and took that time off, I was going to be in trouble. And what ended up happening was all of a sudden, there was just this bigger buffer in the bank because I had done enough and I was continuing to do more and more and more. And it very, very quickly, it felt like a snowball effect where all of a sudden I just woke up and was in this position where I still need to be working all day, every day. But now, instead of being out there in the sun with tools in my hand, literally 6 or 7 days a week and maybe a full day of admin here, well, now it's fewer days per week and it's fewer hours per day for the same income. And then I'm taking that additional time, I'm putting more of it into YouTube. I'm also putting more of it into the business. If you've seen my videos on building my kits and my processes and their how
Yeah, I've
to
seen
do
them.
the work, those serve a dual purpose because they're good for the YouTube channel. They bring in new subscribers. They provide very real value, like actual value to the audience. But then they're for me too, because now I've built another kit for my business that I'm going to be able to hand off to an employee when I do eventually get an employee. I've built a new process. I've built a new this and a new that. But it feels like the root system story you're talking about because it was as if I was watering that little 1 inch tall plant all day, every day, not even once a day. It felt like all I did was water and fertilize this plant, and this plant did not budge ever. And then all of a sudden it did. And I found myself, if you're up here and I was down here, well, now I'm here at least. And I know the next step will be there, and the next step will be there if I keep watering and fertilizing.
I'm going to share something with you that some of your listeners might know, probably most don't. You follow this. If you're, I don't know, if you're 20 years old and you follow this, you'll probably make $2, $3 million by the time you retire. If you're 40 years old and you follow this, you'll probably make $1 million before you retire. Listen to how simple this is. They don't teach you this in school. Okay. There is a law, a tax law that says that if you live in your house, your primary residence, for more than 2 years, when you sell your primary residence, you don't have to pay any capital gains tax. Simple law, but nobody uses it but the rich. How do you use it? All right, well, I'm 20, 25, 40, whatever age. I'm going to buy my first house. What does everybody do? You got to do what no one else does if you want to be successful. What does everybody do? Everybody buys a brand new house. I don't want a brand new house. I want an old, beat up house that needs a lot of work. I talked to my wife, and she's on board because we both have the same goal. So I buy an old, beat up house for 100 grand. I move into it, and over a 2 year period, after I go to work, my daily hourly job, or after I do my handyman work, whatever leftover materials I find, I bring them home and I fix up my house in the evening a little bit more. And then on the weekend, I renovate the bathroom. I do a little bit more. I do all these little things. 2 years later, I've renovated my house and I'm living there. I paid 100 grand for it. I now sell it for 200 because I fixed it up. Okay. So I've lived in it for 2 years. I sell it for 200,000. I made $100,000 profit, tax free.
Yeah.
Repeat. I buy an old messed up house. I slowly fix it up over 2 years. I sell it. It's my homestead. I don't have to pay any taxes. Repeat. If you just do that alone with your part-time job or your just employee job, by the time you're 65, 70, You flip 10 or 15 houses at least, you've made over $1 million, $2 million tax free. Nobody does it. Nobody does it except the rich. The rich do that, and they do what's called a 1031 exchange, which basically means that if they have a commercial property or they have an apartment building and they sell it, they gotta reinvest it within 6 months into another piece of property, and they don't have to pay any taxes on the capital. These are things that you learn. These are the little roots, right? You learn these little things, and when you put it all together, you have guaranteed success over your long term. That one little thing is so simple. Here's something I do. Uh, I've got 4 or 5 guys working for me right now. I always have a handyman house that I own. About a year and a half ago, I bought an old beat the hell trailer on a half acre for $55,000. It had graffiti and it was destroyed. I paid 55 grand for it here in Central Florida. Okay. So I keep it. And when my guys don't have work, when they're slow, hey, go work on the trailer. And then they go back to work. And you guys want to work on the weekend? Yeah, sure. Okay, fine. Go work on the trailer. And then they go back to work. Okay, so here we are a year and a half later, and the trailer's on the market for $250,000. I put about 100 into it. So I paid 55, I put 100 into it. So I'm gonna net about 95,000.
So is this owned by you or by your company?
This this trailer I have in a trust. It's a different thing that I have set up. That's a whole
Which
different
is a whole other subject that
asset
I've realized
protection
recently I need to
and
figure out is trusts.
yeah. You need, these are things, another root to your tree. As you go and you spend that little bit more time learning these things, that widens that base, and it makes your tree trunk that much bigger, and you can handle things. So I always keep a handyman house like that needs to be fixed, so that when my guys are out of work, I don't lose them. Okay, these are little things that when you add it all up, it all adds up to something big. Now, my advice to these guys that are getting started out: when you start to learn it and you understand it, start teaching it. I have made more money and have had more success from teaching and helping other people become successful than doing anything else. I had a guy that worked for me about 10 years ago, and he had just gone through a divorce. And he came working for me as he was an auto mechanic. And he was down on his luck, and somebody said, hey, and yeah, he's looking for, yeah, okay, fine. So he came to work for us, and I was paying him like $15 an hour. He was an auto mechanic, but he knew how to use tools, so he was able to do stuff that we needed done. So he came to me one day after about 6 months. He says, hey, and I'm beside myself. I don't know what to do. I can't take this anymore. My wife's leaving me, this and all that. Can you give me some advice on what to do? And I said, well, I'll give you advice, but you're probably not going to do it. He says, no, and I promise you, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Whatever it is, I'll do it. I'm just that far down. I can't take it anymore. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you what you need to do for the next 2 years. If you do what I tell you to do, exactly how I tell you to do it, I guarantee you that your life will change. But you have to do something that's totally out of your norm. I can't handle it, Ian. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. I'm in. Okay. All right. So here's what you're going to do. When does your lease in your apartment end? It ends in about 2 months. Okay. What are you paying? He was paying like $1,600 a month. I said, okay. Don't get another apartment. Don't renew your lease. He says, what? He says, don't get another apartment. Don't renew your lease. See that? That handyman house that I have that's all beat to hell. I want you to move into that house. Take a bedroom. Put the drywall in the bedroom. Make it habitable. Put an air conditioner in the window. You got a toilet. You got electricity. You got air conditioning. You got a place to live. Move in there and become your own bank. Says, what do you mean? I says, I'm going to show you how to become your own bank. If you look at the downtown of any city, anywhere in America, the biggest buildings are owned by banks. and insurance companies. So I told him, I'm going to show you how to become your own bank. He says, okay. I said, okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the $1,600 a month that you normally paid, and you're going to pay yourself. I'm going to let you live there for free. All you got to do is pay the electric and water because that's what you're using. So he was paying like $150 a month or whatever it was for the utilities. This is a vacant house. And the only thing that's being air conditioned is that one room. So he did it. He moved in there. And after 6 months, he had almost $10,000 saved up. So I said, okay, now here's what you're going to do. I want you to buy a camper. He says, what do you mean? He says, I want you to buy a camper. And I showed him a camper that was for sale for like $5,000. I said, I want you to buy that camper. You said you would do whatever I told you. He said, yes, I will. Okay, buy that camper. So he bought the camper. I said, okay, park it behind the house. So he parked it behind the house. Now he's got a full kitchen. He's got everything. He's comfortable. He's got his own camper. Be your own bank. Keep paying the rent. He kept paying himself. So after the 2 years are up, I said, okay, he had saved up like $23,000 or $24,000. I said, okay, you ready? He says, yeah, okay. I found this piece of property for you. It's $20,000 for a half acre. It used to have a trailer on it. So it's got a septic tank and it's got the power hookup, but the trailer's gone. I want you to buy that piece of property. That was about 8 years ago. He bought the property. He put his camper on that property and he kept paying himself. And I said, okay, now start building your house. And he did. On the weekends, at night, he would have people. So over a period of about 3 to 4 years, he built himself a small house. It's like 1,200 square feet. It took him about 5 years to do it, living out of that camper. Today, he's got a $280,000 house, free and clear. And he's got an old camper sitting in the backyard. That's how easy it is, in reality, to become successful. So now, for the rest of his life, he has no mortgage, no rent, no nothing. He's become his own bank. He's paying himself. So now he's out there. You know, I saw him about a year ago, and he was out looking for another piece of property because he wants to build another house. And this is a guy who's a mechanic who knew nothing about construction.
Yeah.
It really is that simple. You got to think out of the box. You got to be willing to do whatever it takes, and you got to be willing to think out of the box. These trucks that are out there, I go down the street and I see the $100,000 trucks. People are crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
I could afford a $100,000 truck if I wanted. Okay.
Yeah, clearly.
6 months ago, I decided I want to get another truck because I have 3 acres that I have in Central Florida, and it's like a homestead. So I want to use this pickup truck. I want to get a pickup truck. So I went and I shopped around, and they're all 80. 150 is like 80,000 the way I want it. I said, you know what? Nah. What did I do? I got on Craigslist and I found a F-250 1994 gas for $2,500. So I bought it. It was beat to crap, and the engine doesn't work. So what did I do? I took it to a body shop. Long story short, I spent 20 grand on it. I paid for 2,500 for it. I had the engine rebuilt. I had it all painted, and now I got this old 1994 truck with a brand new engine, brand new tires, brand new brakes, brand new everything. That'll last me the next 10, 20 years. Cost me 20 grand cash.
Yeah.
What is my monthly payment? Zero.
And it's the exact
These people that
same
are buying
value
these
to
$80,000
you
trucks?
on a daily basis as the $100,000 truck would have been. It
Yeah, these
performs the
people are
same
buying these
function.
$100,000 trucks and they're driving around these fancy trucks. I'm sitting there with my old little truck. Every time I go to a gas station, somebody goes, oh, wow, oh, old style. Hey, that's cool. Hey, nice truck. I never got comments on my truck before. I've owned $80,000, $100,000 trucks. And I got this old beat up truck, and everybody, it's not beat up, it looks brand new. You think out of the box. So you got a young guy who wants to get into the business, and he thinks, oh, I need a big, you don't need a big van. A year ago, I needed a box truck for my restoration company. I went to Isuzu, $95,000 for the one that I wanted. And I said, oh, I just can't do it. I can't do it. So what did I do? I went to Ritchie Brothers auction. They had an auction in Texas. I saw it online, and I bought a truck about 9 years old for $18,000. The one that I wanted. It just barely made it to Florida. I went, I picked it up. It cost me 18,000. It just barely made it to Florida. It's an aluminum truck. They don't rust, right? The first thing I did is I took it to Isuzu and I gave them $13,000 and they put a brand new engine in. Brand new. So I now got a brand new engine, 18,000 for the truck, another 13,000 for the engine. So I don't know, 30 something thousand. It's riding along just as well as the $95,000 trucks that people are paying $2,000-3,000 a month for.
Yeah.
Those are the
And
little things that make you successful.
I see that mistake a lot too. I don't know if it's the biggest mistake guys make in this field, but now that you mention it, I really can't count the number of times that I've seen somebody young and eager and motivated and fully capable, and they completely screw themselves over because the first thing they do, they get like 2 big paychecks, and the next week they're showing up in that brand new pickup, or maybe it's almost brand new, but it's clearly more than they could buy with cash. You just know right off the bat they financed it. And the first time, this business, hopefully you make it bulletproof by diversifying your client base and whatnot. But nothing's fully bulletproof. Everything, you're gonna take hits, and that pickup is a hit that you've essentially shot yourself in the chest with that pickup, and you can survive it when you're doing well. But you combine the hit of adding that new expense that you now can't survive without because you got rid of your old truck or your van or your Suburban that you were using, and it's literally, to me, wasting money on things like that is like shooting yourself just to see if you'll survive it when it's fully not necessary. And I built this business. I built this in the beginning out of my very first video on my channel. If you watch the very first video I ever put out, I filmed it in my 72 Chevy. It's not a restored 72 Chevy. It will be someday when I reach, that's one of the goals I want to reach, is to give myself the time to just do my own restoration and make no money off of it. I want to get there. But I built this business in the beginning out of that. And then once I had beat that up pretty well, right about the same time, my dad in Mississippi, when he was coming to visit me, had access to this old white van, and he needed something to drive here anyways. So he ended up picking up the van for me and driving the van here for me. And so the rest of this business was built out of I don't know what year it is, probably '04 or something like that. Just an old white van, nothing special. You don't need new vehicles, and you don't need the most expensive Milwaukee cordless tools, brushless, with the hyped up battery and stuff. You can make money with what you have, and you can reinvest that money you make back into your business and make more money off of it, and then someday hopefully reach the point where you're now bringing in enough revenue that you can go have the expensive pickup truck if that's what makes you happy. But that's not the way to build your business.
In my case, look, I'm 62. I've been around the block. I know the industry. I know the business. For this business, for my son, I bought a brand new 2023 Transit, the big one with the dually 350. I can afford it. Different situation. If I was starting this up at 20 years old, I wouldn't buy that. I would look for an old bread truck, those aluminum UPS trucks.
Yeah.
You can buy them for $6,000-7,000. Those things never rust. They never rust, and they're designed to last 1,000,000 miles. Yeah. And then if I can find one with a halfway decent engine, I survive with that. That's an old aluminum box van. Yeah. It'll cost you $6,000 or $7,000. And if it gives you trouble, then you either put a new engine or you rebuild it. So you buy it brand new, it's 80,000. You buy it like I'm telling you, it's 18,000. No payments. You're starting out and you can't afford the 18,000. No problem. Start with your Volkswagen
Yeah.
car. Start with your motorcycle, your bicycle. Yeah. It doesn't matter. People don't care what you show up in. They just care that the work's done right.
Yeah, that you showed up on time, clean, did a
Respect.
solid
If you're
job at a
respectful,
fair
yeah,
price. Exactly.
you do
That's
you
great.
do a good job for them, and they'll refer you. uh, be careful to give advice to these guys that are looking to get into the business. Uh, Remember the bamboo plant. Always constantly doing your 1%. Always learning new things. Be careful. That will kill you. Buying a new truck, big expensive tools.
Yeah. I hate
Don't
debt.
do it.
I
Don't
hate
do
it.
it. Let me tell you, it's an amazing feeling to wake up in the morning and you don't have any bills. I can tell you, it's bliss. It really is. I'm not trying to brag. Okay. Uh, it took me decades to get there and hard sweat. Okay. But I'm 62 years old, and I made it to that point. But I'm slowly guiding my son, advising him what to do, and he's following instructions. And I've got a son-in-law now that's coming from Texas. He's coming to Florida. He's going to work in the handyman business, and I'm slowly guiding them so that they can get to where they want to go. And I preach to them all the time: don't get into debt. Don't get into debt. Don't get into debt. One of them, oh, I'm getting out of the military, and I can get these loans and I can get a house. I said, don't get into, don't do that right now. Don't do that right now. Keep your expenses down. Keep your expenses down. Be patient. You're gonna get there. Trust me, you're gonna get there. People get impatient. This handyman industry is wide open if you provide a good service, if you have good customer relations. Uh, don't underprice. The prices that you charge in your channel, they're pretty close. They're pretty close on. Uh, the way I price things is there's an estimating program out there called Xactimate, which is used in the insurance claims industry. So if you're going to install a ceiling fan, this is what they charge. And if you hang a door, this is what they charge. And if you, anything that you're going to do, it's in there. That's what I use for pricing.
What's the
Those
name of that? I'm going to
prices
write it down.
called Xactimate.
Okay.
Xactimate, when an insurance, when there's a fire or there's a flood or anything, the insurance company sends out an adjuster. And then the adjuster uses a program called Xactimate. And Xactimate tells you what the prices are for that area by zip code. And the way they put that information together is every month, all over the country, 1,000 contractors report what the market price is for things. So it adjusts, and it tells you basically to hang a door costs this much, to install a window costs this much, to lay tile this much, to install baseboard, to paint baseboard, it's so much a foot. So what I decided for my handyman business is I just use Xactimate pricing, period.
Yeah.
So that's how I get my pricing. And I compared the pricing to what you're charging, and it's fairly close.
And my
I think,
prices can definitely go up. In fact, I've been raising just in the last month or two, my plumbing and electrical, I've been raising
I was just about to get to that.
significantly. Okay,
I
go
think you
ahead. I'd
charge
rather hear what
350
you
for a
have to
toilet.
say.
I think you
Yeah,
said you
which
charge
is
350 for a
really
toilet.
low, I think. I do
Well,
that more because it helps my property managers to not have to go seek approval from homeowners.
this is why I bring it up. A couple months ago, when we decided we were doing all this, my son started talking to some friends. He's 30 years old and he's got his old friends and everything. And a couple of his friends happen to be property managers or condo association managers. So one of his friends, they play these cards that they play. I don't know what they're called.
Oh yeah, my son does too.
Yeah, they play these games, right? Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. I don't know what it is. So they get
Yeah, and
together
my
once a
son is into
month or
all the same things.
right. So they get together and he tells the guy that he's looking to do the handyman business. The guy says, the moment you do that, let me know. This guy manages about 4,000 units. Okay. And he's telling him,
Wow.
whenever you're ready, let me know. So he came to me and he told me about it. And that's how I started the handyman thing. This was like in December or January of the past when this happened. And that's why I said, let's open a handyman business. I said, Adam, listen, next time you have a meeting with the guy, try to find out what they're paying for a toilet installation. And I did that because you were saying that you charge, I think, 350. And I said, well, let me see what the market is. Xactimate says that the going rate is about $270, I think, plus the toilet. And you do 350, I think, including the toilet. So I told him, well, who asked the guy? So he comes back the next day and he says, Dad, I was asking him, and he says he's got a bunch of toilets that he needed replaced, and he wanted me to do it. I said, no, we're not ready yet. I don't want to start doing any work until everything's done. We had some issues getting the corporation set up and getting everything running smoothly like we wanted. So we decided to hold off on our opening. So we're going to open next week. So he says to me, he said he had like 3 toilets he wanted done. So did you find out what he was willing to pay for? So when I asked him, I said, well, what are you willing to pay for? Because he told him, we're not going to be the cheapest. You got to understand it. We're not going to be the cheapest. If you want the cheapest, I don't know that we're the right guy. He says, I don't care how much you charge. As long as it's less than $550, you can do them all. I said, okay.
Because that's their maintenance limit then.
So the guy's willing to pay $550 to replace the toilet. I said, okay, well, he's doing it for $350. Xactimate says so. We're at $400. So that's $150 more than what I was going to charge. That's how this industry is. But then I look at the app on my phone every once in a while. It gets like Neighbors. There's these local neighborhood things where people, I need a handyman for this, or I need a handyman for that. And somebody will post on there about 2 weeks ago. Somebody posted, I need to have my toilet replaced. I already bought the toilet. They got like 10 responses. Handyman this and handyman this, and I'll do it for you and all this.
For 80
and
bucks.
They're charging like $65, $80. And I'm like, man, that's crazy.
And we don't try to compete with them. They can have those jobs.
That's not my market. Exactly. Yeah. So listen, I'm in Central Florida. Okay. The vacation capital of the world. We have about 72 million people that come here a year. We have Airbnbs all over the place. We have 1,000 people moving to Florida every day. There are condo associations. There are retirement communities. There's unbelievable amount of work out here. And people are doing it for $65. See, this guy won't hire the guy for $65 because he's not going to be professional. He's not going to be licensed.
He knows better.
He's not going to be insured. He knows we come with workers' comp. He knows we have liability insurance. We're licensed, professional, and we back up what we do. And he doesn't care what he pays. He just doesn't want a complaint from the person when you go to do the work. He doesn't want the guy that goes in there to smell like he just had a joint. Or he doesn't want the guy that goes in there talking on his phone. That's all it takes. Do what nobody else does, and you'll be successful in this industry.
And that's why property managers are so great, is because they are one of the few clients we can go after who have the experience behind them to know who they don't want to hire. An average homeowner has only had to hire somebody 2 or 3 times in their entire lifetime. So they don't know what all the potential pitfalls are, how many mistakes are likely to be made. The property managers have been through it all. They've hired every kind of handyman under the sun, and they have reached a point, not all of them, but you can teach them as well. Once you are the guy who suddenly maintenance is not part of the property manager's job anymore. They just send it to you and it gets taken care of. For most property managers, I've been watching a lot of them on YouTube lately, actually. That's my new sort of avenue that I've been researching, is learning more about property managers and what their job entails and how they feel about things. And almost all of them have been saying maintenance is half of my job. So if I can take fully half of the work off of their plate, if I'm more expensive, so be it. It's not their money that they're spending. As long as I'm not so expensive that now homeowners, I don't want tenants complaining. I also don't want homeowners complaining. And my job is to figure out where that zone is in the middle.
Yeah, you don't want to go in there and charge $800 for a toilet, okay? But you don't want to go in there and charge $300 either. So you need to be familiar with the market. And a mistake that a lot of people do when they first start out in business is they lowball themselves. They don't put enough value in what they're actually worth. How many people are willing to show up at your house at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to change your toilet. 1 million people can do it, but which ones are going to show up? And then of the ones that show up, which ones can I trust to come into my house and be around my children or be around my wife or see what I have inside my house?
See
You got to
what
think
you
about
own
these
and
things.
where it's located. Yeah.
You got to think about these things. Okay. And your customers think about these things. When I first started out many years ago, I remember I did an estimate on a job. It was like $20,000 or something, and I didn't get the job. And I went back to the person that didn't give me the job, and I asked him. I'd like to know, because I'm trying to figure things out. Why didn't you give me the job? Was it something I said? He says, you were too cheap. We felt that your price was too low, and we didn't feel comfortable. The other contractors were 30,000, 33,000, and the other one I think was 35 or 37,000, and you were at 20,000. So we didn't feel comfortable. I could have done it for 20,000. I just started out. I had no overhead. I had no big trucks.
Yeah.
But they didn't. I lost the job because I ended it.
Because that
People do that
communicated,
all the time.
not that you had no experience, but that communicated to them, whether true or not, that you didn't have as much experience, when the other people seemed to all understand that the actual price was going to be in the mid 30s.
And the lesson to be learned is that people don't always look at price. And I learned from that, and I developed. I'm going to tell you some things people aren't going to believe. And sometimes when I say this, people don't believe it, even in my own industry. But I'm telling you, it's true. I have not bid a job since 2000. So for 24 years, I have not estimated a single job to get a job. People can't believe that. How's that possible? It's very simple, because I found a niche in this industry. What niche is that? It's very simple. I don't care. I'll tell you what it is, because it's an $8 billion a year industry, and I'm not worried about competition. What is it? I do insurance work. If you call me and you say, "Hey, and I want my kitchen remodeled, can you give me a price?" I'm sorry, I don't do that. Hey, and I need a new roof. Can you give me an estimate for a new roof? I'm sorry, we don't do that. But if you call me and you say, "Hey, and a tree landed on my roof," oh, I'll do that. So why? Because when a tree lands on your roof, I have no idea what it's going to cost. Nobody does. It landed on your roof. We don't know how much damage there is. So what I do is I go in and I show them all my licenses, all my certifications, and I explain to them I'm going to work with the insurance company, and I'm going to price it based on Xactimate pricing. So I don't even determine what the price is. The insurance company estimating program determines what the price is. The question is not how much does it cost, but what's included and what's not included. So I can't tell you what it's going to cost, and the insurance company knows that. So I sell them on who my company is, and I tell them, I said, listen, you can spend the next 6 weeks meeting 20 different contractors and then trying to figure out what to do and all this, or you can just spend a couple of days and research the experience and the background of the contractors and then pick the one that has the most experience. I use that because I know I'm the one with the most experience. I got 20 certifications. None of these guys have 2 certifications, let alone 20. How did I get these 20 certifications? I do a little bit more.
Yep.
Every year I would go get another certification, a lead certification, or an odor control certification, or a fire certification, or a mold certification. So every year I get another one, another one, another one. So now I got a list. When I get depositions, case closed. When an attorney calls me to do expert witness, okay, I start at $450 an hour to sit and do what I'm doing with you right now, answer questions. Because I have the experience, right? So when I go to a deposition, an attorney hires me, and the first thing that the other attorney is going to say is, "Mr. Gonzalez, how long have you been in the industry?" 44 years. "Oh, do you hold any certification?" This. Okay, case closed. They're not going to win. They're not going to find anybody with the certifications and the experience that I have. If they do, they're going to agree with me because everything I'm saying is legit, and they have to agree. And how did I get there? A little bit more, another root in that bamboo tree.
That's awesome.
And I'm at a point now where I don't need to go to work. I just do it because I enjoy it. Why am I
Yeah.
here with you? Because I enjoy it. Because I
Yeah. I'm
enjoy
not paying
people
you anything to be
learning.
here.
Yeah, I enjoy people learning, and I get a high when somebody tells me thank you, A, and it made a difference. I know you get that high too. I know
Oh, I
when
do.
somebody
I
sends
love
you
it.
an email and tells you thank you, Ray. I know that feeling. It's a wonderful
Yeah,
feeling to be able to help.
it's like a drug for me these days almost. It's just if a day goes by and I don't get it, then I start wondering if I'm somehow dropping the ball because it's so often now, and it just feels great because and for me, in fact, this will segue because I know I've taken quite a bit of your time today, and I for sure want to have you on again if we can, maybe multiple
Sure.
times because you're just a very deep well of knowledge. So I want to transition just a little bit then. One of the biggest reasons, I think probably the main motivation I had for starting this channel when I thought that it was never going to grow into really anything was I just recognized that I had found a little niche and that within this niche, you could create a system that you didn't need to be the best any particular thing, but that you could follow a system and use that system to provide for a family. So for me, like women are welcome on this channel, but my motivation initially and still, but especially initially, was I knew there had to be so many more men just like me. I was working 65 to 75 hours a week for somebody else at a job that I hated and still didn't feel like I was sincerely providing for my family the way that they deserved. And I wanted all of the people who watched my videos, my only goal was just that maybe I thought like if a dozen full grown men somewhere in this country, if a dozen of them could improve their status in life just by realizing they could do better for themselves than somebody else could ever do for them in an hourly job, then that would be worth it. So, with that being said, um, if you care to give any advice, doesn't have to specifically be to men, but if you want to speak like just man to some of these younger guys, maybe less on the business side, because I really want to have you back. And I know you're going to have you'll have all the opportunity you need with me to dispense more business advice. Is there anything you want to say to them on a more personal level about the journey that they're about to undertake, about what it's going to be like for them to be in the arena and how to make it through, whether it's a year or 3 years or 10 years, how to mentally make it through what they're going to have to make it through. Because if they've never done it, they don't understand just how hard it's going to be and how much has to go into it. So, is there anything you want to say to them before we go ahead and end this and then hopefully schedule another one for the future?
First, I want to say stop believing what you see in the news and stop believing what you hear on social media. The things that are happening in the world right now, uh, they're just distractions. There, there are things that are coming, like the central bank digital currency, the standard drawing rights, the things that are going to happen with inflation, the monetary change. I'm not going to get into that stuff because that goes into a big rabbit hole. But there are a lot of changes coming very soon, very quickly, and very fast. Remember your history, okay? Since the beginning of time, there have been wars. Since the beginning of time, there has been conflict. There have been problems. Remember that the eagle, to be strong and fly straight, must have a left wing and a right wing. Stop dwelling on all this political BS. You got to have a left wing and you got to have a right wing to have a successful country. Try finding a country that's all left and one that's all right and see how it's going for them. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it ends in
all this,
disaster if one side takes control.
yeah, all this BS is happening. The elections are coming, and inflation, and forget about all that crap. In 1929, when we had the Great Depression, more millionaires were created during the Great Depression than any other time in the history of the United States. Yes, we had a 33% unemployment rate, but that means we had a 67% employment rate.
There you go. Yeah, there you
So,
go.
yeah. So forget about all that stuff. I remember I learned this a long time ago. A long time ago, there was a young man by the name of Ayan Gonzalez in Miami. He came in a
I
raft,
remember that.
and it was all over the news, all over the country. And all you see on TV was, oh, Ayan Gonzalez and the feds are coming and they're going to deport him and all this and all that. And all you see on nightly news, everything, that's all you saw, all you saw, all you saw, all you saw. I lived in Miami at the time. So the day that they took Alien from the house, I'm Cuban American, right? So he was a Cuban kid. So I was interested in what's going on. And I lived, I don't know, 20 miles, 30 miles from me. I saw all these riots and all this stuff on TV. So I decided I'm going to go see what's going on. I went over there and I learned a valuable lesson that I'll never forget. I got there and this was happening in a 2-block area. But if you looked at the news on television, you would have thought all of South Florida for hundreds of miles was in riots and fires. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this and it's 2 blocks where there's
Yeah.
some things. And I could see this is being controlled. And then I'm watching the news at night and I'm thinking, there's something wrong here. And then that got me into learning a lot of things that I learned about the news and everything else. We are now in something called the fourth turning. There's a book called The Fourth Turning that deals with this subject. There's going to be a lot of turmoil. In the 1960s, we had riots in the schools like we're having now. We had people fighting in the streets, the Democrats, the Republicans. We had the Vietnam War. There were 50,000 dead Americans. There were people spitting on the people that came from war. This is what happens. So don't pay attention to all this news and all this stuff you're watching. You worry about your business. You worry about your life. You worry about your next day, and leave all that other stuff behind. Now, if there's a riot happening a street from here, okay, now I'm interested in it. But what am I saying basically? Don't get distracted with all this social media and what everybody else says and what everybody else thinks. And when you're focused and you know this is the direction I'm going to go, you just remember that bamboo plant and grow another root and stay focused. I promise you, you experienced it yourself. You even said it yourself on this podcast that you saw it happen. And there was a time where you were like, am I really doing the right thing? And all of a sudden, boom. This is how it works. It doesn't happen like this. Okay, it goes like this, and you're struggling, and all of a sudden, boom. And you go up there, and maybe you come back down, and then all of a sudden, boom. That's how it works.
Awesome.
I know that you believe a lot on your children, and here's some advice for you and others. When I was in my early 30s, and I had my first 2 children, I had 4. I needed something that would help me with my children because I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I mean, I was killing myself. And I needed something because I knew I didn't want to be a workaholic dad. I had to dedicate time to my children. And the way I figured out to do it was with scouting. When my first child became 6, he went to first grade. I went to the school. I knew nothing about it. I went to the school and I signed him up for Boy Scouts. And I became an assistant scout leader. And that forced me once a week for usually like half of the year, once a week or once every 2 weeks, everybody gets together at somebody's house and like-minded people, like-minded family with children of the same age and same thoughts got together and they did little things with their children. And then that led to once or twice a year, we will go on a camp out with the group. Everybody comes to the camp out and you have your jamborees and you think. And then I started going to the leadership meetings and I started learning how the Boy Scout system works and how they teach the children. And one of the things that they teach the children in scouting is they teach the adults to stand back. Because when your child's changing a tire or when he's doing something, you have a tendency of wanting to go in there and do it for him. No. You have to stand back. You got to let him do it. And one of the things they taught us was Let them make mistakes because that's how they're going to learn. Don't do it for them. You got to let. So we would go camping, and we would tell them, okay, you got to start your campfire. It would take them 2-3 hours to start a campfire, and we would be like, look, let's look. All they got to do is, but we had to stay back.
Yeah.
They had to learn how to figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
So eventually, that led to wood badge training, where they do like a 1 week thing for adults that want to take it. And I learned in wood badge how the scouting system works, and I actually applied that system into my business, which is called the patrol method, which is basically how I handle the 400 men. There's no way in hell anybody can handle 400 men. So what I did is I implemented the patrol method, which is basically is you got a group of 6 kids, you only talk to one, you don't talk to the other 6. So you have 6 patrol leaders and you talk to the 6 patrol leaders, and then they go out and they give the instructions to everybody. And I implemented that system in my business, and that's how I was able to manage 400 men for that period. So here we are now. My son is 30, my daughter's 34, another one is 22, and the other one is 24. To this day, when we get together for family meetings and things like that, first of all, I have a relationship with my children that's phenomenal, that people would kill for. I talk to my kids almost every day. We're always on WhatsApp, video calling. Almost every day, we're talking to each other, even if it's just 10 minutes. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Hey, Dad. That is invaluable. There's no amount of work. There's no amount of toilets that I could have installed that would pay me those benefits. That interest that I'm collecting now from all these relationships I have with my children is the investment of time that I put to them at that age. To this day, when we get together, my son will come to me and say, Dad, I still remember the day we were in that one camp out in the Everglades, and that mouse got into our tent and you didn't believe me. And then all of a sudden the mouse popped up. And I am so glad that I did not make my business my life and that I dedicated time to my children. Because in the end, Ray, that's all that really matters. We come to this planet for the same reason that every single living organism comes, to reproduce. Every sense, whether it's an ant to a tree to a leaf to a fish, an insect, whatever, everything that is born on this planet comes here for one reason: to reproduce. And I've done my job, and I am now working to help them successful. I'm going to end it with this. I'm telling you, I can go for hours, but there is nothing more important than that, in my opinion. So all the stuff we've been talking about, yeah, it's great, but it can't hold a candle to or a light to your relationship with your family. So don't forget how important that is. Of all the things I've done in my life, I value nothing more than the relationship I have with my children. And they're my best friends, and my wife is my best friend. And everything else is secondary. What we're doing right now is secondary to that. And I see that in your podcast, and that's why I watch you, because I see that that's the heart of what you do. On YouTube and anywhere on social media, you're going to find 1,000 people like you talking and giving all this advice. I'm not listening to them. I'm listening to you, because they're selling you stuff. They're always leading you up to sell you something. You got a 22-year-old trying to teach me how to buy real estate. Oh, come on, give me a break. And then you got a guy that owns 700 apartments who's going to teach me how. Oh, give me a break. I don't have time for that. So here you are with a simple little channel. I ran across it. It just popped up. And you started talking. I said, I like this guy. And that's what attracted me. And I want to see your success, and I want to see your channel success, and I want to see all the people in your channel reach success. And I wish them the best. And, don't forget your family, guys. There's nothing more important than that.
Yes, sir. Family's everything. Well, you froze up there for a minute, but I think we got the whole thing done. So we'll probably end it wherever it last caught you. But I think it stopped it froze up at exactly the right point. I think we got the entire podcast